And hi, so today we'll start on each aspect of the Noble Eightfold Path. Alright, so we were on the fourth Noble Truth and we're still on the fourth Noble Truth. The fourth Noble Truth consists of the Noble Eightfold Path, and we'll go through each one of them. Right, so the first of the Noble Eightfold Path is actually right understanding or harmonious understanding, and in Pali it's called Samadhi. And so, together with right thought or right intention or wise or harmonious intention, they make up the group wisdom, Kopanya in Pali. So, what exactly is right view or harmonious view? So, the Buddha said, monks, there are these two conditions for the arising of wrong view. So to understand what is right view, you must know what is wrong view. What are the two conditions for the arising of wrong view? The voice of another and inappropriate attention. So you can say, if you listen to someone talk rubbish and you believe in them, that is the condition for arising of right view. So why would you listen to nonsense? Because you don't have appropriate attention. Now, attention is a very precious commodity in our world today, and everyone is fighting for our attention, from social media to news to all different kinds of short videos that are really reducing our attention span. So they say that our attention span is really getting shorter and shorter. Even Netflix, right, that used to commission 16 episode shows has reduced it to 12 or 8 episodes. That is how short our attention has become. And the shorter your attention is, the more highly stressed you are. Why? Because when your attention keep jumping like a fly, like a flea, flea don't have very long lifespan. Correct? Because it jumps non-stop. There's no space in between. Remember, in the Third Noble Truth, we talk about why we're able to survive, because of the space between thoughts, space between feelings, space between breath. So the shorter that space, the faster your thought, faster your breath, faster you die lah. But of course, this is not really, when your time is not out, meaning your karma is not out, you will not die. But of course, all these conditions come in and can change it, right? So these are the two conditions for the arising of wrong view. So please, your attention is your jewel. Don't allow it to jump from place to place. Alright? Stay on a topic. Learn to stay. Right? Learn to extend your attention span. Okay, extend your attention span. So then he continued, monks, there are these two conditions for the arising of right view. Which two? The voice of another and appropriate attention. You see? So someone can be talking nonsense, you have appropriate attention, you discern that's nonsense, you move on. You don't spend too much time thinking of nonsense. But if somebody tells you something wise, right? So wise things are not your shopping, traveling, things that people really like to indulge in, which, are material greed. So if you have inappropriate attention for wise Dharma talk, you will probably get bored because they have nothing to do with sensual pleasures. But if you have appropriate attention, you may realize, hey, this Dharma, this talk, or this person speaks a certain way, out of our usual travel and, eating food topics. This person does speak some sense. After a while you realize, right? Why? Because you have certain appropriate attention. All right, so these are the two conditions for the arising of right view. First, you must have appropriate attention. Then you can pick up whoever, whatever around you is speaking truth, is speaking wisdom, and with compassion. All right, so that is right view, wisdom. Right view is understanding. Understanding reality is wisdom. So Majjhima Nikaya number 9 again. I think this is from Shariputra. The Four Noble Truths. What is right view? He say Four Noble Truths. When a noble disciple doesn't mean you have to be a monk or nun. So anybody who listens to the Buddha and puts his teachings into practice is a noble disciple. All right. Anyone who listens with appropriate attention, doesn't forget, contemplates, study, listen. So you listen, study, contemplate. You have, and you remember, right? Okay. So such a noble disciple understands suffering, the origin of suffering, cessation of suffering, and the way leading to the cessation of suffering. In that way, he is one of right view and has arrived at his true Dharma. Okay? True Dharma. True Dharma means there is cause and effect, leading to the arising and the cessation of phenomena. Alright? So there are many non-true Dharma which says things happen out of accident, by chance. So that's not true Dharma. So what other right views are there? There is dependent origination. When a noble disciple understands and sees the arising and cessation of the 12 links of dependent origination in their mind, this leads to right view. So when you can see these 12 links of dependent origination in your meditation, that means your mind must be sufficiently still enough to examine itself, the movement of your mind. Then you will see what karma is. Okay, how karma, a thought, a small, seemingly insignificant thought, can actually lead to a strong feeling to want you to get out of your meditation cushion, which is action. So the thought itself, the mental formation itself, is not that insignificant. It leads your body to move, to do something. And when there is that strong intention to do something, you have to receive the result of it. Yeah? Which is rebirth. Okay? And then if you are able to sit through that intention in your meditation, because it is your meditation time, you should strive not to move. It's your time to be quiet and to examine your mind. So if you can watch the intention, the movement, and not move along with the feeling, then you will see the cessation. Then there is a cessation of a birth. Alright? If you don't know what I'm talking about, go back to the 12 links of dependent original in the Second Noble Truth. Rebirth and becoming, rebirth and death in Buddhist psychology is a mind. It's about the mind. Okay? Then the Noble Eightfold Path. When a noble disciple understands the tints of sensual pleasures, tints of being, and the tints of ignorance, right? So somebody who practices the Noble Eightfold Path is a noble disciple and has right view. Why? Because when you see your experience through the lens of the Four Noble Truths, you will naturally apply the Noble Eightfold Path. Yeah, and the understanding of karma through dependent origination is the key. Yeah, the key to open the door. Right, the key to open the door towards liberation of the mind. What is liberation of the mind? If you don't know how your mind works, how can you liberate your mind? Yeah. So the Four Noble Truths in brief again. It is Anguttara Numerical Discourse of the Buddha 3.33. In brief, the 5 grasping aggregates are suffering. The 5 aggregates make up the personality we call the ego. A monk asked the Buddha to teach him the Dhamma in brief from Sanyutta Nikaya. So the Buddha said, alright, you want to know in brief, I'll tell you. Monk, you are defined by what you have an underlying tendency for. You are not defined by what you have no underlying tendency for. Understood, Blessed One, understood, Holy One. And how do you see the detailed meaning of my brief statement? The Buddha asked him back, because he said he understands. So the monk replied, if you have an underlying tendency for form, you are defined by that. If you have an underlying tendency for feeling, perception, choices, which is karma, which is mental formation karma. Consciousness, you're defined by that. This is actually, I mean, on first read, you don't understand, right? So it's saying that there is actually no personality, okay? There is only the arising of a feeling, arising of perception, arising of mental formation, okay? As long as that is being grasped, at that moment it arises, is put into action, that is what you, inverted comma, is defined by. So at this moment, Macy is, for example, Macy is feeling bored. Actually, you can erase the word Macy because Macy is an idea, but boredom is an experience. So boredom is more true, more real than Macy, the idea. Okay? Macy, the idea, the personality idea, right? Versus the experience of boredom. The boredom is a real experience, right? But it is not an absolute experience because it is like a play of energy, right? For boredom to arise, there must be restlessness, okay? So you see, restlessness, boredom, right? Action, all this is like, you see, it's as if it's music, right? It's a play of music, melody, moving up, moving down, moving up, moving down, right? Arising, ceasing, right? It's an energy play. It's like we're playing a music. What kind of music are you? Are you bad music or are you good music? Bad music is you're impatient, there's a lot of harshness, then your face is always looking very stressed, then you're tuning into bad music, okay? So it wouldn't be like Maisie is stressed and unhappy. It's just stress and unhappiness walking around town. Okay, that's bad music. Understand? Good music would be like, oh, calm serenity is walking around town. Not Maisie, who's looking calm, is walking around town. Right? So whatever you have underlying tendency for, that is what you are. So if you are greedy for form, then you are not Maisie. Again, you are greed for form. You have an underlying tendency for feeling, let's say you have underlying tendency for anger, then the anger consciousness is your underlying tendency. In short, that is your karma. Anger is your karma. Alright, and you're defined by that. Okay, so move on. So again, in brief, okay, so Shariputra, you should train like this. There will be no ego, possessiveness, or underlying tendency to conceit for this conscious body, and no ego, possessiveness, or underlying tendency to conceit for all external stimuli, and will live having achieved the freedom of heart. See, heart in Chinese is called Xing. So it's really freedom of mind is really freedom of heart, because it's the heart that itches and causes the body to move, right? So when the heart is free from all these stimuli and itchiness, then you are able to become more and more discerning and decide what is your underlying tendency, rather than allowing the underlying tendency to lead you by the nose. You are leading the way. Who are you? That's the question. All right. Okay, so freedom of heart, freedom by wisdom. Okay, so the heart is freed by wisdom, by understanding. So when you sit in meditation, yes, you're understanding the mind, which is very closely linked to the heart. So freedom of heart and is achieve the freedom of heart and freedom by wisdom, where ego, possessiveness, and underlying tendency to conceit are no more. That's how you train. So where does ego come from? It comes from possessiveness, the need to possess. The need to possess means you must control. Therefore, if you're a controlling person, your ego will be quite big. Okay, next. When a mendicant has no ego, possessiveness, or underlying tendency to conceit, for this conscious body, and no ego, possessiveness, or underlying tendency to conceit for all external stimuli. So really, we have conceit because we have possessiveness of this body and possessiveness of our external stimuli. Meaning I see, I hear, and I'm very sure I see, I hear, and I must be right. Nobody else is right because my experience is true. Therefore, I negate other people's experience. So that is an underlying tendency to conceit. And they live, having attained the freedom of heart and freedom by wisdom, where ego, possessiveness, and underlying conceit, tendency to conceit, are no more. They are called a mendicant who has cut off craving, untied the fetters, untied the prisons of craving to the 5 aggregates, and by rightly comprehending conceit, has made an end of suffering. So how do you make an end of suffering? You contemplate where this conceit of a self, which is really an idea, mental formation, how does it come about? So as I explained here, the Buddha explained here, it comes about through possessiveness, underlying pride, okay, possessiveness, this is I, this is my body, okay, underlying tendency to conceit. For all your sense base, what you see, touch, hear must be real, what you think must be real compared to other people's, or your kids even, right? Okay, so then when you comprehend all this, you realize all this, that that is causing you a lot of stress, this possessiveness, this need to be right, this need to control, has a lot of contraction in the body. That's when you realize, oh, I should see it through the lens of the 4 Noble Truths and look at 12 links of dependent origination. Of course, 12 links of dependent origination is harder to look at than the 4 Noble Truths in brief, yeah? So again, you can apply the relative truth and absolute truth to the 4 Noble Truths. Okay, so 4 Noble Truths, right, is, first one is suffering. Okay, suffering's opposite is release. No more suffering. That is the 3rd Noble Truth. Do you see? Alright. There's like 2 sides of the coin there again. Samsara and Nibbana are 2 sides of the same coin. Okay, right view is seeing experience in terms of dependent origination as well. So, well, because 12 links very hard to remember, so it'll be good if you can memorize them. Okay, so what is the irrational application of the mind? This is Majjhima Nikaya number 2. Mendicants, I say that the ending of defilement, meaning misunderstanding, distortion of your mind, your thinking, is one who knows and sees, not for one who does not know or see. For one who knows and sees what? Rational application of mind and irrational application of mind. Okay, so for you to end your karma, you really need to know your own mind. When you apply your mind irrationally, distortions, misunderstanding, or defilements arise. And once they arise and grow, and once they arise, they grow. They grow, and then you feed some more, you reinforce some more, they grow even bigger. So how is the mind applied irrationally? Okay, the mind is applied irrationally when it asks questions like, did I exist in the past? Did I not exist in the past? What was I in the past? How was I in the past? After being what? What did I become in the past? Will I exist in the future? Will I not exist in the future? What will I be in the future? After being what will I become in the future? Or are they undecided about the present task? Am I? That means in the present you're like, I'm not sure, very confused. Am I? Am I not? What am I? How am I? And these sentient beings, where do you all come from? Where will it go? Right. So of course these are very normal questions. But why are they irrational? Because they don't give you any real answers. They can't give you any answers. And because they can't give you real answers, you just keep dabbling in them and creating more stories lah, basically, right? When you apply the mind irrationally in this way, one of the following 6 views arises in them and is taken as a genuine fact. The view, myself survives. Myself does not survive. I perceive the self with the self. I perceive what is not self with the self. I perceive the self with what is not self. This self of mine is he, the speaker, the knower who experiences the result of good and bad. deeds in all the different realms. This self is permanent, everlasting, eternal, imperishable, and will last forever and ever. Amen. Sorry, just wanted to say that. So yeah, so all these questions, the underlying tendency for all these questions is actually the belief of a permanent, unchanging self, or a self that does not survive, an immaterial, a material self. All right. Okay. Perceive the self with the self. Perceive what is not self with the self. Right. So like when you say, yeah, there's no self that exists, right? Buddha say not self. There's no self here. So actually, you're effectively saying that nothingness is also a self. Okay. Right, the mind is just like that one. The more you intend on something, its opposite will arise. So it's still arising. There's no cessation here. Okay? I perceive the self with what is not self. So, it's the opposite of the above. I perceive the self with the self. Perceive the self with the self. It's like an eternal soul. I think. Yeah, I'm not too sure about that. Right? Perceive the self. I perceive myself having another self, which is maybe a hidden soul inside the body, I think. I think I may not be right here. I don't have the commentary here. So the self of mind is he, the speaker, knower who experience. So as long as you grasp onto the 5 aggregates, okay, there will be a self that experience the results of good and bad deeds in all different realms. So it may sound like, okay, if I don't grasp onto my 5 aggregates, then there is no self there so I can act and behave as I please, unwholesome. As long as I don't grasp, then there is no experience. So I can kill and got no experience. You may be, I don't know, have you thought of that? Well, I'm thinking of this now. So it doesn't work like that. Because when you act on unwholesome with greed, hatred or delusion, any roots of unwholesome arise from greed, hatred and delusion can only arise from a sense of self. Okay, so there's no such thing as you are going to perform unwholesome action and you will not receive the results because you have let go of that self. No, it doesn't work that way, because letting go of the self means it's not possible for you to act unwholesome. Why? Because unwholesome deeds require greed, hatred and delusion, and greed and hatred requires what? Contraction of the body. Wherever there's contraction of the body, it means what? There's grasping of the 5 aggregates. When there's letting go, the body is relaxed. No grasping of 5 aggregates means every part of the body, the muscle, the tendons, even inside, you feel cool and relaxed. So if you feel cool and relaxed, why would you commit unwholesome deeds? Because those require a contracted body. Alright? Okay, I think I'll finish with this slide. When you apply the mind rationally, okay, distortion of the mind, defilements don't arise. And those that have already arisen are given up. So this is exactly what I say lah. When the mind is applied rationally, there's understanding. You should feel more and more relaxed because more and more letting go. Then you know you're practicing the Dharma correctly. Okay? So as there's more and more letting go, distortions, defilements of the mind don't arise. And slowly they cease. And once they are given up, they don't arise anymore after some time. So, and what are the things to which they do apply the mind and should? They are the things that when the mind is applied to them, do not give rise to unarisen defilements and give up arisen defilements. The defilements of sensual desire, desire to be reborn, and ignorance of what the self is. These are the things to which they do apply the mind and should. Because of not applying the mind to what they should not and applying the mind to what they should, unarisen defilements don't arise and arisen defilements are given up. How do you apply the mind rationally? When you view your life experience through the lens of the Four Noble Truths. Every time you feel a certain feeling that causes contraction in the body, you know this is suffering. Alright? Or you feel this unbearable emptiness in your heart, that's also contraction. Then you know, this is suffering. Oh, the Buddha is right. Right? And what's the cause of suffering? Most of the time is because we never get what we want. Okay, and also misunderstanding of what the self is. What I want, I don't get. The I is very big here. The I, me, and mine is very big. So you should look at that. Okay, then this is the cessation of suffering when you realize, the Buddha said, when we don't get what we want, it's usually like that. Then the Buddha is right again. Why don't I just let go and allow things to flow the way they are, not the way I want it to be. Okay, if I can allow things to flow the way they are, not the way I want it to be, perhaps it's more enjoyable than me having to control everything. Because you have to control and be so absolute about everything, it is very tiring. So why not allow the people around you to be? Okay, because we're not born here to be heroes, to stop everyone's anger, to make sure everyone behave correctly. Because if you are of that mindset, you're doomed to dukkha. Okay, so why not allow other people to learn? Have faith that people can learn, and even though it takes a very long time and they may not be able to learn, your loved one may not learn the lessons you wish they learn while you're alive, it's okay. Okay, they move on, you move on, it's fine, it's okay, right? Then you see cessation of suffering here. This is the practice that leads to the cessation of suffering. When you contemplate, like the example I just gave, what was I doing? I was contemplating. So eightfold path is a lot of contemplation and self-reflection. Okay, you do need that. If you don't have that, no wisdom. So they've completely given up the underlying tendency to greed, got rid of the underlying tendency to aversion, which is repulsion, and eradicated the underlying tendency to the view and conceit I am. Right? Okay, so I'll end here, and we'll continue again. Thank you.